7 details. That's all it takes to completely rewrite everything we thought we knew about Nancy Guthrie. Not 7 theories, not 7 rumors. 7 cold, documented, verifiable details that have surfaced in the last 24 hours, and not a single one of them has been discussed in any press conference. Day 88. In this case, just changed forever. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel does not let stories like this disappear. We stay until we get answers. And today, we are closer than we have ever been. Let's get into it. Start with the street. Stand at the edge of this Tucson neighborhood and just listen. There is no wind. There are no voices. The kind of silence that used to feel like peace now feels like pressure. Because somewhere beneath that quiet, a truth is buried. And on day 88, 3 separate sources reached out to me within the same 1-2 hour window. That does not happen by accident. Something is moving in this investigation. Something the authorities are not ready to announce publicly. But you need to know what is happening right now. Detail number 1. The letters are not random. We already knew that anonymous type letters had been showing up in the neighborhood. But here is what was not reported anywhere. The letters are arriving in a specific sequence. They are not scattered. They are targeted. 1 letter to a neighbor, then a pause, then 2 more letters to different addresses on the same block, then silence for exactly 9 days. Then it starts again. That is not the behavior of someone with weird ideas. That is the behavior of someone who is monitoring the response to each letter before sending the next one. They are watching to see who reacts. They are watching to see who calls the FBI. They're using those letters as a net to identify who in this neighborhood is paying attention. And that changes everything about how we profile this person. Think about that for a second, because if this person is close enough to watch the response, they are not operating from across the country. They are local, or they are returning regularly. Pay attention to this detail, because it connects directly to what I am about to tell you next. Detail number 2. The figure on January 11th had a pattern. Everyone knows that Nancy's neighbor, a woman who has lived on this street for decades, spotted a figure walking at an hour when nobody should have been outside. The FBI has interviewed her 4 times in the last month. 4 times. That is not routine follow-up. That is a witness who is holding a key piece of information that investigators have not yet been able to fully unlock. But what most people do not know is this. She did not see that figure once. She saw a similar silhouette, same height, same stride on at least 2 other nights in the weeks prior. She did not report the earlier sightings because, at the time, they meant nothing. A person walking at night is not a crime. But now, placed next to what happened on January 11th, those earlier sightings suggest this was not a spontaneous visit. Whoever took Nancy had been rehearsing, testing the street, timing the gaps between neighbors, walking that route until it felt invisible. That is not impulsive. That is premeditated on a level that should genuinely terrify us. If you are just finding this channel, this is exactly the kind of investigation we do here. We go deeper. We stay longer. We do not move on. Subscribe right now, share this video, and help us make Nancy Guthrie's name impossible to silence. Detail number 3. The casita records have revealed a gap. The task force has spent weeks going back through a decade of rental history on the small guest house located directly on Nancy's property. 10 years of tenants, contractors, landscapers, service workers, every person with a legal reason to carry a key or walk through that gate. But here is what no one is talking about publicly. There is a gap in those records. A period of several months where the documented rental history does not align with what neighbors remember. A car was parked outside that casita for a long time. A neighbor mentioned it casually, but the records do not show a registered tenant during that window. So either the paperwork was never filed, or it was filed and it is missing, or Nancy had an informal arrangement with someone that never made it into any official document. And if that person lived 20 feet away from her for months without leaving a paper trail, then we may be looking for someone who exists in the margins of this investigation. Someone the databases cannot find. That is not a dead end. That is the most dangerous kind of lead. Detail number 4. The ghost phone signal has a new coordinate. Investigators have been tracing a burner device that activated near Nancy's home at approximately 3 in the morning on the night she vanished. It moved. It traveled in a direction that pointed toward the surrounding desert mountains, and then it went dark, permanently. But new analysis of cell tower data from that night has revealed something that was previously overlooked. The signal did not travel in a straight line. It stopped. Briefly, at a location approximately 2 miles from the house. It stayed stationary for several minutes before going completely offline. That stop matters enormously, because a person who is panicking does not stop. A person who is executing a plan does. That pause tells investigators there was a second location involved, a vehicle, a handoff point, a place where something changed, and that specific coordinate is now being treated as a priority search zone. The desert in that 2-mile radius has not been fully searched. And that brings us directly to the detail that makes me the most frustrated. Detail number 5. The volunteer search teams are still being blocked. The Cajun Navy professional volunteer search and rescue specialists with thermal imaging drones and trained K-9 units offer to deploy everything they have to cover the thousands of acres of desert surrounding Tucson that law enforcement simply does not have the capacity to search. And the answer was still no. But here's the part that the sheriff's office has not explained publicly. The same desert terrain that remains unsearched by volunteers is also not being actively searched by law enforcement. There are no daily grid searches. There are no expanded drone operations. The desert is sitting untouched, while a coordinate from a ghost phone signal waits to be investigated. A petition demanding expanded search access has been building momentum in the community. Residents are showing up. They are organized, they are ready, and they are being held at the edge of the search zone by a bureaucratic wall that is becoming harder and harder to justify. Is this about protecting the integrity of a crime scene? Or is it about something else entirely? That question does not have a clean answer, and the longer it goes unanswered, the louder the community is going to get. We are going to keep pushing on this. If you believe this investigation deserves more pressure, more attention, and more answers, hit subscribe and drop a comment below telling me where you are watching from. People all across the country are following this case right now, and every comment, every share, every notification ping tells the algorithm that Nancy Guthrie matters. Do not scroll past. Stay with us. Detail number 6. The DNA evidence has a timeline problem. Hair was recovered from inside Nancy's home, hair that did not belong to her. It is currently being processed at an FBI forensic lab. But here is the critical issue that has not been addressed in any official statement. The house had an active rental unit. It had regular contractor visits. It had a social woman who welcomed people warmly and would have invited a neighbor in without a second thought. The DNA, even if it produces a match, has to survive a legal gauntlet. The defense for any future suspect is already being written in the margins of that evidence. He was there last March, fixing the water heater. She dropped off groceries 2 months before Nancy vanished. Every legal visitor becomes a potential shield for the real perpetrator, which is why investigators are not just looking for a DNA match. They are building a timeline of every person who was inside that home in the 18 months before the disappearance. Every person, and eliminating them one by one. That process is painstaking. It is slow, and it is the only way to make the DNA evidence hold up when it matters most. Detail number 7, and this is the one that changes everything. There is a second contractor. We have known for days that investigators were focusing on a specific contractor who was seen near the property in the days immediately before Nancy vanished. But sources close to the task force have now confirmed that a second contractor, someone not previously connected to the property, was identified through Ring camera footage from a neighbor 3 houses down. This person appears in the footage twice. Once in the week before the disappearance, once on the night itself, not at Nancy's door, not on her property directly, but on the street, at a time and in a manner that investigators now consider significant. This person has not been publicly named. This person has not been brought in for questioning yet as far as we know, but this footage exists. The task force has it, and it represents the most concrete lead to emerge in the last 3 weeks. Someone walked that street with a purpose. Someone knew exactly what they were doing, and somewhere in this neighborhood, someone else saw something they have not yet decided to report. This is where I need you directly. If you live in this area, if you have driven through this neighborhood, if you noticed a car that seemed out of place in the weeks surrounding January 11th, that detail could be the one that breaks this case open. Do not wait. Do not decide it was probably nothing. Probably nothing has kept this case frozen for 88 days. Say something, report it, and share this video so that it reaches the person who needs to see it. Nancy was 84 years old. She was kind, she was open, she trusted people, and that trust was used against her in the most calculated, patient, and deliberate way imaginable. They did not just take a person, they took the safety of an entire street. They took the peace of a neighborhood that believed it was protected. And they have been watching to see whether anyone would notice. We noticed. This channel is not going anywhere. Next week, I will have a direct update on the second contractor lead, new information about the casita records gap, and something that a source just handed me regarding the sequence of those anonymous letters that I am not ready to release publicly yet. But it is significant, and when I can verify every detail, you will hear it here first. We are 88 days into this silence. The yellow ribbons on the palm trees are fading. The cameras have moved to other stories. But the truth does not fade. It waits, and we are going to find it. Subscribe, share this, leave a comment below with what you think that second contractor detail means for this investigation. And tell me, do you think the sheriff's decision to block volunteer search teams is about protecting the case or protecting something else? Because I have a feeling that answer matters more than most people realize. Nancy Guthrie deserves better than silence, and we are not done.